Okay, so I made a chessboard slash checkerboard out of concrete and poplar. This was such a fun project and I learned a lot. I'll tell you my mistakes. So first I just cut these little slivers. It didn't matter how thick because just one side was going to be seen. Of course I needed to sand it, and I thought it was just easier to do it this way instead of using the sander actually turned on. There's all the pieces. There's 32 pieces that I needed to make because the board is 8 by 8 and I only wanted half of them to be wood. So of course I had to make a grid, and this is on a dollar store piece of foam. I just used the same piece of wood for the thickness, and I used that right angle tool that I also got from the dollar store. And you'll see that it's not perfect that the lines meet up, but it is close enough so that I can set the pieces down. Alright, almost done with the grid, and then what I did was I came out, I think about an inch from the corners, because I didn't want the pieces all the way to the edge. And there's the final edge of the board. Now here are the sides of the mold. I believe I made them 1.5 inches thick. Of course, used a razor blade to cut those 4 pieces out. Now sometimes I use hot glue, but I just chose duct tape on this one. I think it was quicker. Now if I were to do this again, I would probably use something more sturdy, because you'll see when I put the concrete in that it pushes the mold more than I was expecting. Well, this was probably one of the most fun parts, was putting the pieces on. Now I thought about ways of keeping those pieces in place. But I was actually trying to make a chessboard as inexpensive as possible, so I decided just to make the concrete chunky and to put it on gradually to keep all the pieces there. I do like the way it turned out because there were gaps around the pieces of wood, but someone could like hot glue wire across those pieces. Once I thought the chunky concrete kept them in place, I poured a more liquid mixture of concrete. And you can see how the foam kind of bows out, which is actually, I don't think it looks bad. Depends on what you want. This is quick drying concrete, so it's hard in about 45 minutes. Alright, now here's the reveal. Now there's cracks in it, which could be because of the two different mixtures. One chunky, one more liquid. Or it could be because I didn't cover it in plastic and it dried too quickly. But you'll find out it turns out okay. So I just used a needle nose pliers to scrape the edges. And I like imperfections. It just makes something look more artistic, more handmade in my opinion. I use my tools to lift it up. Now I like the way wood glue looks on concrete, so I wanted to try that first. It's a very inexpensive coating. But you'll see it messes up. I ran out of gloves, so I used a sandwich bag to spread it. And you can see I was running out of glue. But even that looks neat to me, how it fell in the crevices. So here are some felt pads. Now I like to get this little package from the dollar store. They work fine to me. Don't want the concrete chessboard, checkerboard to scrape tables. Now here it is. I think it looks good. It would have looked even better if it would have completely cured, because then those lighter colored areas would have been more clear. But what I noticed was that the poplar pieces they needed to be sanded. They were too rough, so I could have sanded it beforehand, and I think the wood glue coating would have been just fine, but it wasn't okay the way it was, and I'm kind of glad, because then I just got to play around with it more. So I started sanding, and then of course that messes up the wood glue, so I decided to just completely nix the wood glue coating, removed as much of it as I could, and went for an epoxy coating. Which, I mean, that gives me more experience as, you know, in crafts to do that. To do two different coatings. At the end of the video, I'll tell you how I would do it next time. So I like epoxy. It's so durable, and it's really not that expensive as a coating if you buy a lot of it. Now I actually had to do two coatings. This is the first one, but the outside was just not thick enough. Again, these paintbrushes are from the dollar store. Huge fan of the dollar store, even though it's $1.25 now. So this is the finished product, and you'll see the areas where it's lighter on the concrete. That's where I don't think I removed all the wood glue. But I'm still happy with how it turned out. Again, I love imperfections I mean, it's pretty much a piece of art, a handmade piece of art, chessboard. Now going forward, I would probably secure the pieces of wood, do a more liquid pour of concrete, and then make sure all the wood was sanded, and use linseed oil. Linseed oil can go on concrete, and I think it makes the wood look better than the epoxy does.